And I think we're going live. Hopefully my Wi-Fi will be okay.
All right, sweet, we're on. Okay, happy Monday, guys. And to those of you who celebrate, I hope you had an excellent Easter or long weekend if you are in Singapore, like us. So, welcome to another episode of Change School TV with Grace and myself, Saul, for your weekly dose of inspiration, Monday mojo, and a mindset reset for your week ahead. So, in case you missed us last week, we wrapped up a full month of episodes all around networking, tribe building, and creating meaningful connections with our episode 23, I think it was, on how to ask good questions. So tonight's episode 24, and we're kicking off a full month of talks around fear, which is a really huge topic for anyone who's going through a major life change or a career change, and basically for anyone who is human, because everyone feels fear on some level and at some point in their lives. And I think it's also a topic that's really close to our hearts, Grace and myself, just the road to entrepreneurship, right? Or the path of entrepreneurship. And, you know, any business owners as well would know that you're facing fears all the time. And it's a constant battle to rise above the fear mindset. So the truth is that really everybody battles fear. And oh my God, my light almost fell. The thing about fear is that it has this sneaky little way of disguising itself in emotion. So, you know, sometimes it's anger, sometimes it's denial, or sometimes it's inactions, right? Like resistance or procrastination, or negative self-talk. So, you know, that's really why fear is the number one greatest barrier to change, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight. And it's a tricky one because we're just not always aware of it. But it does keep us trapped in our heads and in our comfort zones. So that's why we have a full month on fear. And today we're going to kick off to talk about the journey of moving from fear to freedom. We'll talk about why it's the number one barrier to change, how to move through that journey from fear to freedom so that you can release your fears and just really be free. And then we'll give some final tips for building confidence and courage in life and work. Grace, how are you? Ready?
Okay, we're good. So I am just on my phone as per usual, and I will be looking down and up throughout today's session, but hopefully the Wi-Fi doesn't cut out from this side because I'm tuning in from the middle of the jungle almost. In Borneo. So we'll see how things go, but yes. So, okay, we're going to talk about why fear is the number one barrier to change. But in a minute, I want to do a few housekeeping rules, right? I guess if you are following our page and you know that Facebook's algorithms have changed, you want to ensure that you catch all of our updates, obviously, because that's why you're also following our page. So if you head over to our Facebook page and click follow, and instead of keeping it to the standard or default settings, you would want to choose the see first settings. So we'll do a post separately around that, but just so that you guys are aware, and that way you will never miss one of our Monday Mojo mindset reset episodes, and anything else that we want to share with you guys, but also, you know, other sort of information that we have on our page, which are usually inspirational or various different quotes. And then, of course, if you're tuning in, hey, Daryl, I see you there. It's so good to see you always tuning in with us. And others of you who are tuning in over this next 45 minutes or so, please do say hi, give us some thumbs up or some hearts, Easter eggs if there's that emoticon, anything that you can. And feel free to drop in any comments or questions as we move through. Okay, so let's get cracking. Why fear is the number one barrier to change. Okay, so fear from everyone of us who has experienced it knows that it's a powerful emotion, and it really shapes how we feel, how we behave, how we think. But most of the time, it very much is on a subconscious level versus on a conscious level. And if everyone believed that they could handle everything, fear wouldn't exist, right? And sometimes we think that we can handle everything, and then we hit a certain road bump, and we feel challenged, and fear is then sitting there in our subconscious mind, telling us that we can't move through this. Right? But the key thing to think about is also how you react to fear, because everyone reacts to fear so differently. And, it can show up in different ways in a person. And actually, it can show up in multiple ways in the same person, but at different types, or depending on what that fear belongs to, right? So it can show up as anger, it can show up as sadness, it can show up as resistance to change or rejection, or fear of failure. Whatever those things are can then cause those sort of emotions, right? I think another thing that we want to say is fear is itself not a bad thing, right? It's really a natural response, and it's a way of, I guess, keeping us, or nature's way of keeping us out of danger or harm to some extent. But it's not an external thing or an external situation. It's really how we perceive things. And it's also a mindset, right? We can change it. When we assume that we can't obtain a certain situation, or, certain things scare us, that's where fear just sits in the back of our mind and starts telling us, okay, we need to stop what we're doing. And, it could turn out extremely bad. So why should I go down this road? Right? But it just sneaks up on us. And sometimes we might not even acknowledge that, or we might not even know that that's fear until we start really reviewing and reflecting on that situation. And you start realizing, actually, it's because I'm uncomfortable about the situation that I'm in, or that I was in, right? So another thing, why fear is one of the number one barriers to change is that, oh, hey, Ian, hey, Pinky, sorry, getting distracted here. But another reason why fear is the number one barrier to change is that, I guess it's less obvious to us. So in our personal lives, we might see fear when it's deciding to start or end a relationship, because perhaps we're attached to people, or we've been with that person for a really long time. Even friendships sometimes, because we feel obliged to be friends with that person because maybe we've grown up with them. I mean, there's so many ways, right? So sometimes we're really afraid of the fear that's standing in our way. And rather than dealing with it, we just leave it to the side. And it's also because fear can be all consuming, right? And sometimes really, I guess, debilitating, to the point where we don't take action at all, and we just stay stuck, and we just stay where we are because we feel that that's the best action to do, right? And actually that's not. So if you guys are watching right now and you are thinking about some of the fears that you have, that's great. It's really what we want to get through to you tonight, is start thinking about what are those types of fears. Everyone has them, right? Even for us in our own journey, we go through from being like, oh my God, amazing, positive day. And then the next day being like, holy shit, like it's super scary. And, there's so many things that hold us back from even taking that next big step forward sometimes. And we just have to keep reminding ourselves and try and reframe and reset the way that we look at things, right? So in our professional lives, fear can show up when we're sort of holding things back, perhaps in a group, or maybe because the culture doesn't allow us to share certain things, or, in a meeting or in a conversation, or even if you're struggling to make a career change, right? And whether or not the career is the right career for you. And most of the time, we don't ever know what the set outcome is going to be. We're going to talk more about that a little bit later, but that really is one of the biggest barriers to change, is because we don't know what the outcome is. We do not have control 100%, right? No matter what actions we take and no matter what we try and do, we can only go with it, right? And we just have to trust in the process, trust in our decision at that time. And if it doesn't work, move into a different direction, right? Because a lot of the times when we're working with career shifters, they want that certainty of like, I need to know 150% that this career I'm going to move into is the career for the rest of my life? And that is so hard to answer, you know, and sometimes it's also difficult for us to work with that, because we're also trying to look on a mindset level, right, on a values level, as well as on a practical level. And that's why we tend to look at piloting our career change, which we'll share a lot more about that towards the end as well. Okay, so, you know, I guess just to summarize, there's a few key things, right? Is we're most often not aware of the fears that we have. Fear just sneaks up on us. It makes us stuck, and it really, I guess, stops us from taking action and moving forward because we're too fearful of what that outcome is going to be. And it can show up in so many different ways. So really think about that as we're talking through tonight's session, and how fear is showing up in your life, or maybe you haven't been paying attention to that fear that's sitting in the back of your head talking to you.
Exactly. And, you know, I mean, I'm just listening, and it's so true. I mean, it's even making me think, because I think for me on a personal level, you know, I've definitely become more conscious, I think, of different things that just pop up in my head. And I don't always think of it as like the underlying fear, but these days I'm starting to go, oh, okay, that's me being scared of, like, you know, winning a new project, even though it's really exciting, but I'm also like, oh my God, am I going to fail? Right? Or making a big decision. It's like, oh my gosh, super exciting to have new opportunities, but then you're also like, okay, what if it doesn't work? Right? So I think it really is, it's such a good point you made, that it's like, it really does disguise itself in other things, you know? And so the question is, how do we get over the fears that hold us back? And, you know, the thing is, I think fear feels really heavy, right? And then sometimes it feels like it's something really heavy to talk about. And I think, you know, part of why we want to spend a whole month talking about it is not to depress everybody, but is to actually be able to make it something that we can talk openly about, make it something that we become more aware of, because that's really the first step of moving from fear to freedom, is like the self-awareness part, right? The ability to kind of look at a situation, like Grace said, and just go, okay, hang on, you know, what is this reaction I'm having, or what is this emotion that I'm feeling, or why am I kind of like saying no or resisting it, or what's making me feel anxious, right? So all of these kind of feelings actually have something a bit deeper to it. So if we can bring a little more, it's just trying to bring the subconscious into the conscious world and be able to go, okay, that's me being scared of failure, or that's me being scared of success, or that's me being scared of, you know, something I don't know the outcome of. So, like I said, I think if you find yourself resisting a new idea, or a new, you know, opportunity that comes out of nowhere, or you're like really procrastinating on doing something that you think is important, but, you know, you just haven't been doing, that's usually the beginning signs of, you know, something underneath that you're might be feeling doubtful about, or fearful about, or just uncertain. And I think uncertainty in that like gray zone, that place that's just like, I don't know, unpredictable, right? I think we like things that are predictable. We like to know that we're getting a paycheck every month. We like to know what we're going to have for breakfast tomorrow. We like to know a lot of things. But I think the reframing part is also knowing that, like, what's exciting is the stuff we don't know. Right? And so if we can look at things more like an adventure, more like new opportunities, and feel excited about it, and like, sure, feel those butterflies that feel like fear, right? But also use that to your advantage, and not so much like run away from it. So I think, you know, good things can happen when you least expect it, and bad things can happen when you least expect it. So at the end of the day, like, the only thing we fail to do is fail to try. And so that's really why we're talking about like letting go of fears. So I think one thing to just ask yourself today, and just to maybe come back to every day this week, is just ask yourself, like, do I value certainty, or do I value freedom? And I think most of us would say we value freedom most of all, you know? And so it's just giving yourself that chance to stretch yourself and to be greater than you already are, and to, you know, really push yourself to discover your full potential, like whether that's inside your current role, in work, or even in your like personal life, and how can you like go even further, right? How can you do better or be more bold in whatever it is that you're doing? So as we said, the next few weeks, we're going to really dive a lot deeper into the different aspects of fear, the different types of fear that we face. And I think for the purpose of this month, we'll also have some guest speakers come on board and share their stories with battling fear. But I think, you know, what we'll be talking about for at least 3 weeks out of this month will be like the different levels of fear that really, really stop us. And they kind of apply to all of us. So I think, you know, it'll hopefully be a very reflective month. Seeing, you know, where fear, like I said, is showing up in your life, and what aspects of your life, and what's going on there. So I think the only thing I'll wrap up with is a quote that I know both Grace and I really love, and we use it a lot at the Change School, by Ralph Waldo Emerson. And it's just that what we fear doing the most is usually what we most need to do. And I think that's really the aim of everything we're going to be talking about this month, which is learning how to listen to our fear, how to lean into it, and use that to really discover what we need to be doing, where we need to be building more confidence, and where we can really start to cultivate like deep inner courage in order to do more and be more.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, definitely the big thing is like, how do you step into fear, right? And use that, kind of like what Sol was saying, where it's like, use that energy to build or create something out of it, right? In the same way when people are like, okay, I'm like, you know, I have so much energy. Well, you know, energy can come from so many different things, and fear is actually, you know, holding us back in that way. That think about how much more energy you would have if you were able to release that fear. It's definitely not easy. I mean, I have a fear of a lot of things, on the personal, more like heights and all this other stuff that would probably take me a while to get over. But I guess on a, you know, work front, it's definitely just a reminder for myself more often than not. And just for Sol and I, just constantly checking in and being like, okay, like, where are we on the scale of comfort zone, and how far do we go? Right. And I wanted to share a quote, interestingly, that I shared yesterday on Instagram, and it says, security is mostly a superstition. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing, by Helen Keller. And I think that, you know, adds to what we're talking about on the fear side, because really, like Sol said, certainty or freedom, right? The other is security in what way, right? And is that security then breaking your freedom, right? Or is that security, I guess, you know, keeping you stagnant in what it is that you're doing, or where it is that you want to go? Or is it stopping you from reaching your full potential? And those are things to really think about, right? But we want to share with you, and I'm going to reference my notes here because there's a lot to go through, but we're going to share with you a framework from moving from fear to freedom. And as we both shared, there isn't one way to cope with fear, and there's no right or wrong, and everyone's limits are so different, and it can change at every stage of our life. So whether you choose to work with a professional to, you know, move through your fear, or an online course, or a family member, or a spiritual guide, or books, or whatever it is, or even through your own mindful practice, there is a framework that we're going to work through or share with you, which is from Lisa Rankin's book, The Fear Cure, and we'll share that in our recap notes on our blog. And it can really help you to assess, I guess, where fear may be holding you back in the different areas of your life and work, but also what you can do about it. And because we're all about action is king, you know, we always love these types of this sort of insight into how we can take it on a, you know, emotional, physical, spiritual side, mental side, mindset level, and then turn it into something actionable and practical. So it's 5 phases, and I'm going to just share a little bit what each of them looks like, and then what action points we can go through with for each of those phases. So phase one is unconscious fear of uncertainty. So what does that mean, or what does it look like? It's really thinking of it as like avoiding to take risks or action without a sense of certainty about the outcome, which is what we talked about, or we just touched on a little bit earlier, right? Oftentimes, the biggest sense of fear is that we don't know what the outcome is going to be, right? Or the biggest type of fear that we have is that uncertainty. So what it feels like is, risky. It's a little bit outside of your comfort zone. It's dangerous, perhaps, maybe exhausting, and can probably sap your energy because it takes a lot of your mind to start working around what it is that you need to take action in doing. So therefore, you're probably just worrying a lot about things that might never come out that way. So a motto for that phase, for the unconscious fear of uncertainty phase, is better safe than sorry, right? A lot of people use that. We've all heard of that 1,000,001 times. I use it a lot, so what can you do, right? Or what can you ask yourself to start moving forward? The question is staying in your comfort zone really working for you? And really think about that and even uncover, what does your comfort zone look like? Maybe even draw it out, right? So our action step for this first phase is to keep a journal or record situations where it triggers that type of fear, right, of uncertainty, and how you respond to it. So maybe it's a really big decision that you have to make, and you have a deadline of when you need to make that decision. And one is like this opportunity that is amazing, but perhaps you're not 100% certain about it. Think about those types of situations on a personal as well as on a work front, and then reflect and think of how you can reframe your thoughts and behaviors to let go of the need to be sure and embrace the unknown, right? So maybe use that quote even, right? Like, life is a daring adventure. And I think if you can take that step, that first step, you'll really be able to review what that looks like for you, or what this phase of fear looks like for you, right? So phase two is conscious fear of uncertainty. So what does that look like? Okay, well, that looks like we're avoiding any type of uncertain situations, and we want to try and control the world. Every one of us has a little control freak in us. And, that comes from fear sometimes too, right? The majority of the time it can be as well. It is. So what does it feel like? Okay, anxiety, worry, self-doubt, we all have that. Right? There's an endless list possibly under that. And what is the motto around that, or what we would usually say, is nothing is ever certain in life. There are no guarantees. So again, something very commonly heard, and even think about, when have you heard those things? Or over the next week, when someone starts maybe saying that or the other, better safe than sorry, then think, actually, why are they saying it, or why are they saying it to me? And just start questioning some of these things that we hear all the time. So what you should ask yourself for this particular phase is, how is my drive for certainty limiting my possibilities? And what can my fear teach me about what I need to learn and work on? So what are you going to do? What's the action step for this? It's about doing just one thing differently from how you would normally do it, right? And just see what happens. So if you are used to doing something in a certain way, even if it's a routine or whatever, right? Just try and break it out and do something that's totally different or random, that you would be like, this is crazy or stupid, or whatever thought that is, right? It doesn't have to be
like opposites day with yourself or something.
Exactly. Exactly.
So like, say no when you want to say yes, and then say yes when you want to say no, or go right when you want to go left, etc. Right?
Exactly. And every time, like, as much as we are creatures of habit, right? And we might go down the same path, maybe just try and take a different one, or ride down the road instead of walking down the road. I don't know. I mean, these are small things that everyone can do, right? Okay, so phase three is this uncertainty limbo. It's called the uncertainty limbo. And what it looks like is that it's more, we're not completely at ease with the unknown, but we're not resisting it either. So we're kind of impartial, but we're not really making a decision around something still, right? So
that's where I like to sit a lot of the times.
yeah, so it's like all or nothing, but then it's kind of nothing, and
Yeah.
just where it is, right? And yeah, sometimes it's okay to do that too, because you can just let life unfold as well, right? And allow yourself to go through what needs to go through and not even think too much about it. So again, it's so hard to have these frameworks as a be all end all, but it's just something to really work from, and it's a starting point. It's a foundation to start with, right? But then don't go to like analysis paralysis, because that's then where you also start getting stuck, right? So what does uncertainty limbo feel like? Well, it's about, making peace with uncertainty and feeling the freedom that comes with it, right? So feeling that weight off your shoulder, feeling that relief about, just the stress that you might be holding on in there, right? It's a really, really good reminder, I think, for a lot of us. And the motto, I guess, is find your peace while living in limbo. So, I guess that's when we talk about being in a state of flow as well, right? Sometimes it's just being in that mind or in that time where you're just where you are in the present, and you're just going to let it flow, right? As well as allowing yourself to feel what it's feeling like at that time. So ask yourself, how can I follow my curiosity and be open to adventure and new opportunities? So what's going to feed your curiosity is another way to start looking at it, right? And what things are going to make you be open to adventure or even take action in that. So the action point for that is pretty simple. It's what we probably say in all of our episodes, is to question everything, right? To challenge your thoughts, to challenge your limiting beliefs, to challenge your assumptions, and really step into that fear, or like we said, lean into that fear by doing the thing that you've been holding back on the most, whether it's starting a passion project or, asking that guy out on a date, whatever it is, having that divorce, whatever those things are, okay? Public relations, public speaking, right? That's a big fear for a lot of people. Writing a book, all of these things, right? Think about and question everything that's sort of limiting you from where you can get to. So phase 4 is the uncertainty seduction. I love the name. And what it looks like is immersing in the discovery process instead of having to know everything, which personally, I love this phase for myself, because I feel that I love to explore a lot of things on the work front and just kind of dive into things and then just see where it goes, because that's oftentimes when the best things just like fall into place. But it's not always easy to do, right? So what it feels like is it's that feeling that, maybe we're that adventurer. Sometimes I think, oh, maybe I'm that person that can go heli skiing and go down on a mountain, but actually I'd never do that, to be honest. Maybe one day. But I have to move past that fear on my own. But, like thinking about becoming, I guess, you feel adventurous, right? Or you're seduced by the unknown. And that's something that I think, if it drives you in that way, or if it can drive you in that way, you'll be surprised at what you can produce or what the outcomes could be in where it is that you're trying to take yourself to. So the motto there is, everything I want is on the other side of fear. Totally true, right? I think that one is hands down completely true. And even if we don't see it now, we'll probably see it later, because we need to move through. We're not going to be able to see it immediately, but it's only when we connect the dots backwards, right? That whole saying that we start seeing, shit, I really needed that, and it was really good for me. And yes, everything was on the other side of that fear talking to my left ear, so ask yourself, how can I tune into my intuition and let it guide me? And I think that's something that we all forget that we have is intuition. Because we're also not tuned in enough to it. And sometimes we get confused between what's a gut feeling, what's intuition, and what's like my mind talking. So I think that just takes practice. So your action point there is to cultivate a practice of reconnecting with yourself, whatever way that looks, whether it's, doing meditation, whether it's doing more writing. Again, everyone has such different ways of reconnecting with their deeper sense of self. And just taking that time out for yourself is really, really important. And some people, need to be in nature. So understand what will help you get there and go and do it. So final phase is surrender and trust, right? So I guess in this particular one, it's really about, hey guys, I haven't been looking down for a while. Eddie is here. Oh my God, I got so distracted and into these frameworks because I love this framework. Sorry. Hey, Eddie, Twinny. Hi, ladies, seduced by the unknown. Totally. Connect dots backwards. Yes. Hey, Mark. Hey, Hamish. Backwards lifestyle. Hey. Okay, cool. I just got totally distracted here with on here. But anyways, and we're on our 5th phase of the Fear to Freedom framework, right? From Lisa Rankin's book, The Fear Cure. So anyways, let me get back to where we are. Phase 5 is surrender and trust. And I think this is something that, probably Sol and I have gone through a lot in the last few years.
Work in progress. Sure.
Totally. If we had an Excel spreadsheet that showed our surrender and trust in a work in progress format, it'd be really interesting to see what that looks like. If any of you are Excel geeks, please feel free to share us one of them. But in this final phase, it's really when we learn not to fear or, I guess, anticipate outcomes, right? So going back to us talking about we don't know what our outcomes are going to be. In this phase, we just have to surrender and trust, right? We just need to allow ourselves to be guided and really just, as we said, look back and understand that then later on things will have connected in the way that they should. I do want to add a little disclaimer that sometimes, though, life does need you to rev up the engine and, just go full steam ahead. So again, just take the situation at hand and the situation that you're dealing with or whatever it is, as it comes and analyze it from there, right? But what this phase looks like is being open to wonder, right? But whilst practicing discernment. And I think wonder is a really beautiful thing that we have also not spent or don't spend enough time doing because we're always rushing or we're always on our phone or on Facebook Live, right? But these sort of things are essential for us. And it doesn't mean that you have to travel. It's just wandering to a museum, right? Or wandering to the Botanic Gardens or wherever that space is that you can wander into, even a city, down an alleyway and all of that sort of stuff, right? So something to use as the motto is, I trust the process and unseen forces that are guiding me in ways I may not yet understand. And this phase is a perfect phase for you to go back and watch one of our episodes. I think it's one of our episodes where we share affirmations. Did we share affirmations? I think we did. If not, we'll have to do
I know we have somewhere. I just don't know if it was here. But we can dig it up and share for sure.
But I guess we talked about making affirmations, right? Yeah. We did definitely talk about that. We'll find it and we'll share it for you. But this stage is the perfect phase for you to start writing different affirmations. So in this phase, ask yourself, how can I let go of control and learn to trust the process of becoming? And we'd love to hear your answers around that. So what action can you do? Well, you can wander, right? You take a walk and get lost. And Eddie, hi, I know that you love to wander.
Amazing.
Yes. So, I think wander and get lost, right? So do something against the grain of what you firmly believe, or just try letting someone go if you've been holding on to them, or, something. Just decide on one of it and go for it. Okay, so let's just go over the 5 phases titles, okay? And then you can go and read Lisa Rankin's book, The Fear Cure. Phase 1 is unconscious fear of uncertainty. Then phase 2 you move through is conscious fear of uncertainty. Then phase 3 is uncertainty limbo. Phase 4 is my favorite, uncertainty seduction. And then phase 5 is surrender and trust, right? So those are the 5 phases. And you want to say something?
Well, I just wanted to say, I think I love it. And just listening, I was like, oh, I think I'm in this one. I think I'm a bit of that one. I think I'm a bit of that one, which makes me just want to drive home this point, right? Is like, it's not a linear thing. So I think more, it's more that I think the reason we're wanting to share this is to, one, help people to kind of figure out at different moments when any of this resonates. It's just to help you kind of see and recognize and be like, oh, maybe I'm surrendering and trusting right now, or maybe that's what I need to be doing right now, or am I getting seduced by uncertainty? So I mean, I think it's just to help you kind of sense of different emotions, different feelings, and understand too, something that Lisa says in her book that I really liked was like, we tend to be comfortable with uncertainty, like different levels of uncertainty in different parts of our life. So you might need a lot more, or you might feel you need a lot more certainty, like in your work life, like in the work realm of your life, but be okay with more uncertainty in your love life, for example. Right? So I think it's like, it's important not to, because I think that's what we always see, right, Grace, when we put out frameworks. Sometimes people are like, okay, wait, what's step 3, what's step 4? And I just want to avoid that from happening, because it's not like a manual, or a system. It's just helping, it's just being able to recognize, where we're at, what level, what stage, what's happening, and what mottos we can kind of remind ourselves of, or what actions we can take to kind of work out of a certain phase or a certain slump with fear.
Totally. And I think, this just gives you an idea of like, it allows you to recognize the fears, right? So it's a really good way to just start going, oh, actually not that you're going to remember I'm in the, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Like uncertainty seduction phase. But it's you're going to hopefully take some of the key things of what it looks like, what it feels like, and I guess the motto around that phase, right? Or that quote or that set thing. So really, I think just this framework allows you to go, you know what, I probably am at this point of the fear phase cycle, and this is what I can do about it, or this is really how I'm feeling about it, right? So the more that we become aware of these things, the more we're able to start becoming more aware of how we are, and then therefore what actions to take or not take from there. So those are all of them, and I am trying to catch up with all these comments, Eddie. And he said, in my opinion, a tapestry to dance with versus a model in 1, 2, 3. Totally. And that's what I think with all models and frameworks, and why I don't believe going back to school helps, because we all have to work within a framework. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so let's get back to it. So that was a lot to take, but you can always
recap it all in the blog, and you guys can rewatch this as many times as you want. Unlimited binging guaranteed. Okay, no, but that was a lot and hopefully really helpful, and I think it's a really great way to kick off our month on fear. So we're not going to keep you guys too much longer. I just want to wrap us up with some final tips, and then I think Grace will have a short message at the end as well. But just some final tips for, to keep in mind as you kind of work through the journey, right? It's not linear, but it is a journey from moving from fear to freedom. And I think the more we can work through that process, the more lighter life can be, and we don't have to feel that pressure of controlling and knowing everything. We can just kind of flow a little bit more. So final tips are, 1, go gently. Be gentle with yourself, be kind and compassionate with yourself as you kind of try and navigate this whole world of fear. It's not going to happen overnight. It'll probably come up multiple times in your life. And so it's just, taking good care of yourself and trying to be mindful as you go through different life situations and different emotions that come up along the way. So that's tip 1. 2 is just understand that fear is actually a sign that you're lacking knowledge, or you're lacking confidence, or you're lacking courage in a certain area. And it's not about judging yourself or giving yourself a hard time about it. It's just being able to say, okay, here is a gap, or here is an opportunity for me to really fill a void, right? With more confidence, with more practice, with more skills, or whatever it is that will make you feel more confident about a certain aspect in your life. Tip 3 is kind of linked to tip 2, which is, just stop judging yourself. I think we really don't realize how often we judge ourselves, because sometimes I think we get so caught up in like how other people see us, or what other people might be thinking, or what's the right way to do things, or what shouldn't I be doing. But actually, it's just a bunch of judgment we're throwing on ourselves, and I think we just have to, really actively, consciously cut it out. So just recognize that you have everything you need already to move forward, and that wherever you are in the journey to freedom, or just in life at all, or in your work, is exactly where you need to be right now, but it's not fixed, and you can do something to move forward. But you don't need anybody else or anything to happen for you to be okay. You're going to be just fine. Tip number 4 is to take one step at a time. So, unlike how we rush through our lives and rush through work, you don't need to rush to get to freedom, right? You can't. It is a process, it's a journey. So pat yourself on the back every time you take one of the actions we shared, or every time you lean into fear, or anytime you do something that you know is damn brave. And even if nobody else knows, you know it. So give yourself some kudos for that.
Totally. High five. Yeah.
Exactly. And we'll give you high fives. You can just message us and tell us what you did, and we'll give you high fives like all day long. What else have we got? And yes, tip number, I don't even know where I am, probably number 5, is just to remember that fear itself is not the problem. So don't become like a fear hater. It's not that, fear is this bad thing. It's just the way you're perceiving something, right? So if you're feeling fearful, check yourself, ask yourself how you can think about it a little bit differently, and do something, more positive with it. So tip number 6, focus on what you want, and know that there is a hidden lesson in everything that happens. And I think that's a really, really key point that I want to say again, is that there's a hidden lesson in everything that happens. And just like Grace was saying, and I love that quote, I think it's Steve Jobs, right? Who is like, you only connect the dots when you look back, right? And I think it's so spot on, because the reason it makes sense when we look back is because we realize what we learned from that experience, right? Or we see how we grew. So I think we can't see it from where we are sometimes, but if we can trust that, the discomfort is growing, right? It's that stretching, like when you're physically growing, it's painful. So that's just how the cookie crumbles. And the last tip is, trust your own timing. Trust your own timing, trust your own path, and just remember it's your own journey. So it doesn't matter if someone else is getting there faster. It doesn't matter if someone's a bigger scaredy cat than you or braver than you. You are on your own trip, and it's not a race, right? So the only timeline that really matters is yours. And I think the more we can stand true to that and be okay with that, the less discomforting this journey has to be.
Yeah, totally. So I mean, such good tips, that we're giving you. No, but really, I think they're just great tips for everyone. And it's just good because even for Sol and I, when we're going through this and when we're doing our Facebook Lives, we're also retaking in all this information, right? Because it's just reminders for us at every stage of where we are. And, a lot of this stuff that we cover is also things that we also need to keep reminding and resetting, right? Because you can never keep reminding yourself enough, no matter how wise you might think you are, right? So I think they're awesome, brilliant tips for everyone to just keep top of mind. And we really need to maybe, find some fear chasers, or not fear chasers, but fear checkers. So they come in and they check on your fears, right? Or you can go and like talk to them about their fears. So feel free to share them with us. As always, we're always happy to be there, you know, and give you whatever other resources we can, but do, you know, just drop us a line and we'll see what we can do. However, I guess to wrap things up for the Monday evening, because I know for some people, like in Australia, it's still a public holiday for you guys. So you guys are probably out drinking instead of watching us on Facebook. So, all right. Well, you know, we have you've probably heard us over the last few Change School TVs that we have our 6-week immersive course, How to Confidently Create Your Bold Career Move. Thankfully, the title is not that long that we can still say it succinctly, but it's, you know, Bold Career Move course. And sometimes people don't know how to say it, but it's How to Confidently Create Your Bold Career Move. So we are super excited to launch that. Our next enrollment is happening on, or our next intake is on 14th of May. Right? And we're going to be opening enrollment for that week only. So we only ever open enrollment for a week. And it is a 6-week immersive online course. So if you are feeling stuck in your career and, you know, you have a little bit of that fear niggling in your head, or subconsciously saying things to you, and fear is also blocking you from making that career change, then this course is definitely 100% for you. We'll definitely share more of exactly what goes on inside the course with our early interest subscribers. So if you want to know more or get on our wait list, you can do so at bit.ly/boldcareer. We did also pop it into the post with this Facebook Live, and you will receive first updates around everything Bold Career Move course-wise. And if you want to be notified, you know, via Facebook Messenger, you can also do that too. So feel free to let us know. But a big note here that we, you know, may have shared over the last few ones is that we only accept a limited number of participants per cohort. And the reason, you know, is that we also like to go deeper with our participants. And we've already got, I think, about 50 people on our wait list. So we just don't want you to miss your chance, and we only open enrollment every 3 months around about, but really this next round is happening May 14th. So if you're in that mid-year slump, then it's probably a good time for you to start reviewing, right? So don't miss your chance to start creating your bold career move with us next month. And we would love to see you inside our 6-week immersive course. And if you know of anyone that would be interested, feel free to share either this video or our link bit.ly/bold career so that they can also get on the wait list, and maybe you guys can join it together.
Awesome. So we're super excited for that. We hope to see you guys come on the list. We hope you enjoyed tonight's session. And I know we have given you guys plenty to reflect and, if you so choose, to act on this week until we meet again next Monday. And in the meantime, as always, we'd love to hear your thoughts. We'd love to hear your fears. We'd love to hear how you're busting fears. Actually, we should do that. We should do like a week of fear busting. But yeah, please share in the comments. Let us know how you go, if you're struggling with anything. And of course, if fear is stopping you in your career, then you now know what is coming up on May 14th. And we hope you guys will join us. I think that's it. So we will be seeing you guys next Monday.
Block your calendar. This whole month is fear, right? So let's work through your fears together. All right, guys, have an awesome night. All right, bye.
Bye.